Okay, I'm going to walk through the doing the melee attack, the 360 melee attack that has a charge time. I can change it to 2 seconds. Right now I just have it as a half second so we can see it. Um, but basically I'm querying the touch position. I'm not doing it off the player, so it can still happen in any location. And I'll show this. But what I'm doing a little bit differently, because right here I was going to do revolute joints, but instead of teaching them a whole nother joint thing, I'm actually doing 4 swords in all directions, and I have the player uh, switching all directions so that it will generate all 4 of those swords in all 4 directions. Um, and I'll discuss the code for that. Okay, so in the entity manager, I have it where I'm calling well, I call it a heavy sword 360. So for this, I am adjusting a little bit of how I'm doing like the normal attacks so that I can have it where it's shooting in all directions. And then in my controlled movement system, that's really where the magic happens. So I have in, make this a little bit bigger. Here is where I am detecting if a long press has happened, and then I can put it into my hold control, which is what control I will use to do the melee 360 melee attack. So in that hold, then I'm checking if the player has collected the heavy sword. If he has, and the time, because there is a delay, if the time since he attacked is less than 0, then I'm putting him to an idle state so we don't keep having a movement animation, and then getting the player's position. And I'm defaulting them to go in the up position so that when he starts rotating, all of the swords are generated. Since the box 2D body in the background of the texture, the way that it generates swords, it's going off of the position of the body, but since it's a round body and those prismatic joints, it acts funny unless I default it to a specific point. So that's why I end up having it as the direction up. And then I am manually setting the angle that the body is facing. And then I'm just doing a for loop and iterating through, creating 4 swords, and then setting them up to be destroyed at 0.6 seconds. So then each direction that happens, I'm switching the next direction, and then changing the angle that the box 2D body behind the texture is actually facing. And then I'm resetting the time since attack. So you can't just keep doing a melee attack. Now in my weapon UI, because I kind of already had it set up ready to do it, but in my weapon UI I have where I can pass with the observer pattern that he has collected the heavy sword, and then in my collision system, it's still a heavy sword regardless of the attack that he does. But in my collision system, then if the heavy sword attacks an enemy, then it's going to actually take away double the health of a normal light sword. So I'll go ahead and show collecting it, and then because I just have it in the main screen. So if you have the original light sword, you collect the heavy sword, or you just chose to go for the heavy sword in the first place, that's where you would end up seeing it show up in the weapon UI, and then it acts as like a normal sword for doing an attack. But if you want to do a 360 melee attack, you actually have to hold for half a second. So I'll play this to show it. Alright, so that's the light sword, that's the heavy sword. I'm going to go ahead and collect. There, see how I did it? Now, if I hold down, there's my 360 melee. I can show it in action. So I'm attacking in all directions. Now, if I just try to hold, it still waits half a second, but the swords don't go away. I might end up having the times adjusted because I have them getting destroyed at 0.6 seconds, but 0.5 seconds is a hold. So when I change it to 2 seconds, they will be destroyed and you won't be able to recreate. The only issue is that sometimes when I'm moving, sometimes it ends up turning inwards instead of just sideways or out. Okay.